It's 11:59 at Radio Free America, and this is Uncle Sam with music and the truth until dawn. Right now, I got a few words for some of our brothers and sisters in the occupied zone. The chair is against the wall. The chair is against the wall. John has a long mustache. John has a long mustache. It's 12 o'clock, Americans, another day closer to victory. And for all of you out there on or behind the lines, this is your song.
And welcome everybody to our daily gun show. On Mondays, we like, whenever possible, to bring people on to have a conversation, to talk to them about the whys and the how they do what they do. And today we got Matt Mallory on from Meet the Pressers, well, you've got quite a few hats. So I know you from Meet the Pressers and from working with Riding Shotgun with Charlie. But first off, thanks for joining us. Welcome.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Why don't we take maybe a couple minutes just to maybe the elevator speech. I put a link in the description to your website that has an About Us page that's pretty epic. It's a really good About Us page. Like, it's the kind of thing I try to put on my LinkedIn. Very inclusive list of what you've been doing and stuff, so people can have an idea of who you are from reading that. But for the people that haven't read it or aren't familiar with what you've got going on, maybe a quick couple minutes to tell us what you got going on, but then let's get into the meat of it, though, the why you do what you do.
Yeah, most definitely. So once again, thanks for having me. I always love coming on shows and with great people like you to be able to spread the good word and the gospel. So Mallory Unlimited's my LLC, my main company, and from there, underneath that, I've got a bunch of DBAs, and those DBAs range from PS&Ed, Public Safety and Education, which is my primary income source of teaching classes around the country. I always say, I teach boater ed, driver ed, hunter ed, and also firearms and self-defense training. And so I like to say that I'm a self-preservation instructor more than just a firearms or self-defense instructor. And then, as you alluded to, Meet the Pressers, our TV show listed on IMDb as well. Had guests, such as most recently, Donald Trump Jr. was on the show, so people can check that out on YouTube and all the social media platforms. And then some other businesses under there that I do. We've got Mallory Market, where we have a small hobby farm here with chickens and bees, and planning to add goats and a farm stand at the road. Mallory Properties, we've got a couple spots here that we rent out in short-term rental. We're going to be adding more to that this coming up year. And then United Merch Co., which is my newest, that basically doing merchandise for the social media influencers out there. That's a new project that I just started to kick off this year as well.
Right on. So I appreciate it. And it's obviously when you have a lot going on, you've been doing stuff for a while, trying to come up with something on the fly like that is always a fun opportunity, right? So I appreciate you coming up with that. And I was just about to talk to you about this off air. I figured let's go ahead and go on air about it, or talk about it on air. Have you ever had a chance to go on the show and just talk about the why and maybe the how of what you do?
I don't think specifically just that. I think it's been, shows that I've been on, they, might ask a little bit and we touch on it a little bit. I don't think the whole show has been on that. I think this is, it's a neat format, definitely a great way to think about even more in depth and kind of bring me back to the roots of, why I do this in the first place kind of is neat, getting into the depth of it and spending more time than just a quick soundbite on why I do what I do. Definitely.
Right on. Yeah, I figure like Riding Shotgun with Charlie is a good example. A friend of both of ours, that his format is to bring people on for as long as they want, really, as long as the ride lasts, I guess, which is usually under an hour. But it's generally talking about them and their projects exclusively, and not necessarily, hey, this is the issue of the day, or this is the issue of the region, or whatever that you're the expert on. And, quick brief, here's who this person is and here's why they're here. So that's usually how we meet people out in our community. So that's exactly what we're trying to do with this show, is give people a chance to learn more about what you do and why you're doing it. So that, one, we can inspire and hopefully motivate people, because nobody's superheroes out here. Nobody's independently wealthy doing this as a side hobby, especially the people that are getting real work done. So with that in mind, the big question, and I'll make it as open as I can. Why do you do what you do?
Yeah, that is a great question. I guess I'd have to go back to it's been in me with guns, at least. It's been in me since I was a kid. I mean, I got a Daisy Red Ryder BB gun at Christmas when I was, geez, that must have been, less than 10. It was probably 7, 6, 7, 8, something like that. And from there, I would push deer as a kid with family. So the hunting and gun safety, knives, survival, camping, hiking, all that stuff. I kind of grew up in. I grew up, outdoors in the village of Cayuga, upstate New York, and we'd go like most people my age. I'm 49. They'd be out from the time the sun would come up to the time the sun went down, and they'd go home. It's not like that anymore, unfortunately. And from there, I went into the military. After I got out of the military, I went into restaurant management in my early 20s. But I've always had a desire for martial arts and firearms and self-defense and such. Fast forward, I had a tech company, M Factor, which I still have, but I don't do much with it anymore other than hosting websites. And after that, I started teaching during that, I started teaching computers and had a knack for it. People liked, my teaching style, and that transitioned over into doing teaching for Boy Scouts and for Civil Air Patrol, rifle and shotgun. And it just kind of exploded from there as far as the handgun. And my wife wanted to get her pistol license. I reached out to the county. Hey, can I teach the class to her? And they're like, sure. And then I was like, well, can I teach to the general public? And they're like, yeah, send me your credentials. I did. They approved me. Send me your curriculum. Frantically putting curriculum together, sent it off to them, got approved. And that was one of the hardest counties to get approved in. So it kind of started out as doing it as a nonprofit for Hunter Ed, Boy Scouts, and Civil Air Patrol, teaching firearms, and then just evolved into teaching it to the general public. And it just, people liked it. They kept asking for it. They asked if I could do another course, a different type of course. Hey, do you teach the Utah? And I said, nope, but I will. And then I went to Utah, got certified, and I just kept adding and adding. And anytime I saw a way that I could bring a product or a class content to the masses, I would take it on. And that's kind of how we got involved with UTM. That's how I got involved with Taser. That's how we got involved with Saber. All three of those companies didn't have really a instructor-based cadre that would be out there teaching the civilian side of it. So I pitched it to a lot of the CEOs and stuff in those companies, and they let me run with it. And it's been successful over the past 3 or 4 years doing it with those companies.
Right on. So I don't want to leave you hanging, and I didn't want to interrupt you, but the first question is, what kind of year are you talking about when you started all this? What time frame is that?
Probably around 2010 is when I started doing it professionally, making money at it. Prior to that, probably 2008, 7 or 8-ish for doing it volunteer for Hunter Ed and such.
Right on. So it sounds like actually we've had quite a few things in common. As you were mentioning that I did restaurant management for a bit. I jumped into restaurant maintenance from there, but then went into computers and tech. Did that for a bit. That jumped me into the internet and then to web stuff and then gun stuff on the web. So it sounds like but you kind of went in a similar as far as computers and I'm assuming web. But you didn't really say what you mentioned websites and stuff, but we've talked before, so I know you had some web stuff in there too. What years is it where you decide I'm going to do gun stuff on the web instead of just, I'm assuming, websites for people, projects for other people, as a contracting tech person?
Actually, so I've got a degree in web development, degree in computer network systems. I've got my A+ and Network Plus certifications, and I recently just gave up my last computer client. I still have hosting, still have websites that I host, and I do very, very minimal, website design other than my own and all the businesses that I have. But the actual computer network and individual computer clients, I just literally turned over my last one to a student of mine who came to me to take his handgun course, who owns a tech company. So I kind of just handed them off to that student so that I could focus more on the training and he could get quicker service because I am so busy traveling around the country teaching classes, and then also here, teaching here in upstate New York constantly. I just got done teaching 4 days straight, about 11-hour days between travel for 20. I got about 26 students in those two classes, Thursday through Sunday. So it was a pretty marathon between those two classes, 4 days, 26 people was pretty. Had one come up from New York City, drove up from New York City to take the class. But anyway, sorry, I kind of went off the rails a little on that, but
that's sort of the point. So I'm just muting all the time over here. My dog is sitting right next to the microphone. You might not be able to hear him, but he snores.
I heard a growl.
So when you're making the decision, at some point, was there a decision? I guess I'm putting my experiences on you, but at some point you're doing tech stuff, online, computer stuff, all the other things you might have been doing at the time as an entrepreneur, and then this potential for doing gun stuff comes along. Was there any decision there? Was that something they had to choose between, or was that just an easy or I guess both?
It's trying to think back to an actual time when it happened. I think it was more of a gradual thing, because I can't really put my finger on a specific. I mean, I guess I could probably look back through emails and maybe service call tickets and see when I actually, I don't want to say gave it up, but when I made that huge transition over. And I think I always kept both of them going at the same time, and then slowly but surely the teaching classes took more time. I made more money from it. More money from it, because I could have 10 students in a class paying me $40 or whatever for that 4-hour class, where I go into a service call where I'd make $75 or $100 in an hour. So it was kind of a no-brainer that the training company kind of slowly took over for the tech side of it. And the hosting's pretty much easy. That stands on its own. It just runs on its own, other than updates and stuff on the server. But the teaching slowly took place of it, and I never really gave up the tech thing as far as just telling clients, well, I'm not doing it anymore. I just kind of did it. And then as they asked me, I said, well, I'm out of town teaching, but let me put you in touch with somebody, or you might want to call your backup tech, and then they would do that. I had a lot of contracts too, where I would do just like cable runs and terminations and troubleshooting at like restaurants and whatnot. So those companies, they have a plethora of techs, and I would just not take calls when they came in. And that's that happened more and more over the years. I'd say probably 10 years ago, roughly, I would say that bigger shift to the teaching happened. If I could, if I just put it out there, it might be a little bit more, a little bit less than 10 years, but I'd say right around that window.
One of the questions I was going to ask is, how much did the situation with the laws in the state of New York affect your projects or your directions? And I guess was that any influence to that balance there that we just talked about?
Well, I know definitely in 2008 under Obama, the classes exploded. That was roughly probably my third or fourth time going to SHOT Show. And, my wife, that was I think the third time going to SHOT Show. I brought my wife with me. We went out for a vacation and to work. Obviously, I was working pro staff for laser ammo at SHOT Show. And we were getting signups left and right, because Obama came out and said, I'm going to take your guns, basically. And that really drove the classes. The classes were, people were signing up left and right for that. So that was a big blip. I think that was probably the first time that I saw the classes just kind of explode out of nowhere. And I was like, wow, so there's trends. and it was interesting. And maybe around that time too, I probably started adding other classes that people could take. If people asked, like, hey, do you teach this? If I didn't or didn't know how or didn't have experience in it, I would go out and seek the training from other instructors and add that on. A lot of the stuff I had was military and law enforcement, but it was, some of the stuff, as most people know, especially anybody that's in the industry, a lot of that stuff's antiquated. It's old. They're still teaching Weaver and, cup and saucer and stuff like that. That's not being taught anymore. So some of that stuff kind of have to take it with a grain of salt. So I was always looking to expand and reach out and find other instructors that maybe taught it a different way, or, just have multiple tools for my toolbox, if you will.
We kind of stopped there and I started asking you questions, but I'm not sure if I interrupted as you were kind of answering the question of why you do what you do. You talked about going from the tech side and what you had been doing and transitioning into firearms classes, and we kind of stopped there. But you've gone past that to doing content creation, and you kind of alluded to working with industry. So I didn't want to interrupt you there again, make it a Q&A show as much as an opportunity for you to discuss that. So I don't know if there is something there, but
yeah, I mean, yeah, I mean, definitely. I guess I could think back to one situation. Our daughter wanted to get her hunting license. Our son, our oldest, well, only son, but our middle child, he got his hunting license. Did the bow hunter class with him. Well, then our middle daughter wanted to go and do it years later, and so we showed up at one of the hunter ed courses and knocked on the door, and they're like, "Oh yeah, we filled up. We had 80 people in the class. 5 minutes after we opened the doors to take people in." And I was like, "Wow, sounds like you need more instructors." And the guy's like, "Are you interested?" And I was like, "Sure. I teach computer stuff. How much harder is it going to be to teach firearms? I've been around guns my whole life." And I went in.
Oh, crazy. What year is this? Sorry to interrupt.
Oh, geez. Let's see. She's 25 now. So it was when she could do it at 12. So probably, 15-ish years ago, something like that. Terrible with math off the cuff in my head when you think. Do it.
But I appreciate it. Sorry to interrupt again, but yeah, very interesting, very parallel. I was just sort of stumbling along, and all of a sudden I'm like, wait a minute, nobody's petitioning for guns out here. So
yeah, so 13. It looks like roughly 13 years ago, probably when that happened. But so that was kind of like my first time. Excuse me, my first time getting into teaching free hunter ed. Right around 13 years ago. And I think maybe the rifle for Civil Air Patrol was just a little bit before that or just a little bit after that. I can't remember exactly. But that was kind of one of the reasons why I got into instructing, and it wasn't to make money from it. And then obviously as family members and friends started asking if I could, they could take class from me, if I could teach them, and doing lessons here and there, I just realized that it would be a wise idea. And now that I'm thinking about it, I sat down at Civil Air Patrol and had a group of like 4 or 5 of my lead staff, because I was the squadron commander, and I had about 4 or 5 other people that I trusted that wanted to do firearms with me, and they actually went and did the rifle instructor course with me. We sat at the table, and I said, I think I can make this into a business and teach other people. And we were brainstorming and talking about it and thinking about it. And that was really the beginning of PS and Ed, was at that round table at I think it was either before or after a Civil Air Patrol meeting one evening, many years ago. And who would have thunk all these years later, and now we're doing everything else with the media and stuff, and going to SHOT Show, and kind of exploded. It's kind of surreal in some sense.
All right, so I got to interrupt again. So, said you're a squadron commander for Civil Air Patrol. Were you in Civil Air Patrol yourself back in the day?
I was not. No, I was never in Civil Air Patrol. I did do Boy Scouts, Cub Scouts more so when I was a kid, but nope, never Civil Air Patrol. Kind of wish I knew about it when I was a kid, but I did not.
Okay, so then how did you find out about it to be involved with it later in life? To be a squadron commander?
That's actually a very interesting story as well. I always think everything is connected. And
let's take a second. I'm bad. I want to take a second first and just explain to people what Civil Air Patrol is.
Sure. Yeah, definitely. So Civil Air Patrol is an auxiliary of the United States Air Force. And it's kind of like, kind of like a Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, but more like an explorers on the law enforcement side. So if kids want to go into the military, if they start with Civil Air Patrol before they're in college and such, they can actually get up to their spats. And if they get their spats award, which is the highest award, it's colonel in Civil Air Patrol, then they actually get a better rank in the military. They'll actually, I think, get first lieutenant. They'll get a first lieutenant if they also have college or something like that. I can't remember exactly, but it benefits them, especially if they want to go into a flying career in Civil Air Patrol.
I was in Civil Air Patrol. I went into the Army, but I got a stripe for being a second lieutenant.
Yeah,
or maybe as a first lieutenant. I don't remember what I was at the time, but yeah, you become an officer and you get a stripe, and you learn essentially all your marching and everything. It's epic.
Yeah, it's great. So we homeschool. We homeschooled our kids from our oldest, who's 31 now. We homeschooled her from high school, and then all the other kids we homeschooled from that point. Probably about 25 years ago, we started homeschooling, and we were at a homeschool event, and one of the homeschool kids showed up in a uniform, Air Force uniform, and I was like, you're not old enough to be in the military. What's this about? And he said, oh, Civil Air Patrol. You should come to a meeting. And our son was friends with him, and our son was like, yeah, I'll do it. So we went to the meeting, and the squadron commander at the time was a retired lieutenant colonel from the Air Force, and he basically brought me in as his deputy commander, and then turned around and groomed me because little did I know he wanted to step down. So he basically put me in the position for squadron commander, and our son started there, and then our middle daughter ended up going in too. And then I basically phased out. I think I just let my membership expire a couple years ago. But those two children wanted to get into it, so I got into it. We did the rocket challenge, and we did encampments and everything. So it was fun. It was a good experience while those two children went through it. And maybe our 8-year-old now, if she wants to do it when she turns 12, that might be an option.
Dude, that's awesome. So I don't know if it's good etiquette during an interview, but dude, I gave you kudos for that, because not enough. Most people assume you have to be in the Air Force to do something like squadron commander, or be involved, or have been in Civil Air Patrol first or something. So taking it on and doing that, because that's really how it happens. It's like a baton, right? The parents that are involved at the time hopefully keep the baton and pass it to the next, so that squadron can exist, so that the kids could can use it, can pass through it.
Yeah, I stuck with it. Thank you. I appreciate that. I stuck with it a little bit after our kids got out, and I went up to the group. I was the group deputy commander. I'm getting ready to be group commander, but just the kids weren't in it anymore. The wife wanted to spend more time with me, and so I kind of pulled back from it so I could spend more time with the family. And then I got really busy with teaching and traveling, so it was kind of harder to make meetings and be in town for the meetings. Especially
how big is the squadron?
When I took over, I think we had, I'm going to guess because I don't know the exact number, but it was like 30 or something by the time I left.
Wow.
But by the time I left, I think we had 80 or 90 total.
What? Wow.
It was the largest squadron in central New York out of like 7 or 8 squadrons.
That's the biggest one I've ever even heard of. Yeah, that would have been like our whole, I don't know what they call it. What do they call a whole bunch of squadrons anymore?
The wing.
Is that what they're? So, that would be
the whole wing
for us. That's crazy cool. So I was going to say the other side of it is I spent my entire life with guns, and I went through Civil Air. My dad was in Civil Air Patrol, so I was in Civil Air Patrol as soon as I was in Scouts and everything, as soon as I could be. And I enjoyed it. We had a really active, interesting Civil Air Patrol thing, but I thought I had done everything. Well, I knew of everything, and I participated in everything I felt like. And I did as much as take correspondence courses with the Air Force for armory stuff. I did a whole armorer's course, like actual multiple ones, but I had no idea there was guns in it. So that either means there weren't guns in it back in the day, or I'm pissed. But tell us more about the guns in Civil Air Patrol. I didn't even know that was a thing.
Well, that's a cool story too. I was at a wing conference, and everybody's dressed up in their Class A's, and one of the cadets had a NRA badge on them, and I was marksmanship badge, and I was like, what's this? I mean, this isn't Civil Air Patrol. This isn't any military branch. How do you have a organization outside of Civil Air Patrol or any military branch, one of their awards? And she said that, well, Civil Air Patrol, the only outside award medal you could wear would be the NRA basic rifle course badge. And I was like, really? So I said, well, where'd you go to take it? She goes, well, I had to go to California because there's nobody in this area that would do it. So she put me in touch with the Civil Air Patrol out there that did it. And I basically started, picking his brain on how we could do it. That's when I ended up setting up a course for our cadets in our squadron, Syracuse Squadron. And we went and there was three or four NRA basic rifle instructors that taught it. And I was sitting there watching. I would go, I could teach this. Maybe I should. And then the funny thing is some of the other parents that were there with me, some of the other Civil Air Patrol members that had kids, they, I started asking them who else wants to do it with me. And I recruited like 4 or 5. So we ended up having a training counselor. Wayne Shapley came in, and he actually ran the class and certified us all as rifle instructors. And then the next year we started doing the rifle course on our own, so we wouldn't have to pay instructors. So we saved the squadron some money, and I thought, let's make it a group event. So we opened it up to all the squadrons in Central New York, and then it was so good that the second year that we ended up opening it up to the wing, and we called it the Rifles and Ropes Bivouac. So we did a rifles course and a ropes course, and we found a ropes course in upstate New York. And we basically just had cadets from all over New York State, from New York City, Long Island. They'd all come up to Central New York, and they could pick. They could do the rifles course or they could do the ropes course. And then the next year, usually we get the same kids back, but they'd switch and they'd do the other course. So we did that for probably, I think, 4 or 5 years before, and that was right around the end of my term. But it was a great event. We got rifle safety, gun safety, and also a fun one for people that maybe didn't want to do guns or wanted to come back the next year and still have something to do, but not do the same course again.
Yeah, that's epic in so many ways. And well, first off, that's cool. So I guess now that you mentioned that, I would have gotten my NRA stuff from Scouts, I guess. So if that was a thing back then, I'm sure I would have figured it out and been wearing it, but I don't remember it. But at the same time, I don't remember a lot of stuff from back then. But that's epic for people that aren't paying attention or don't realize that's bringing guns to Civil Air Patrol and then expanding it, not just keeping it to yourself, but a squadron in Civil Air Patrol, essentially a troop in Scouts or Boy Scouts. So when you talk about a wing, we're talking about a council or something, whatever it's called, like a region, like a whole bunch of troops that come together and do stuff as a group. So you're talking like probably hundreds and hundreds of kids at that point that have the opportunity to take advantage of that. And then, like you say, then you do an event where they get to go someplace and work on it. Now, this is happening when Scouts is not doing as well as it had been historically. And it's by, what do they call it? With, it's boys and girls. So it's not like just a bunch of dudes are doing this. This is open to girls that want to participate as well. So that's
exactly.
Just super cool. Yeah.
It was fun. I was proud of it.
That's something you don't know about by just looking at your bio. I mean, obviously it said something about Scouts on there and I wasn't sure, but.
Yeah, I don't think actually it's kind of interesting. I don't think I've ever told that story in any of the interviews I've ever done because they've always been focused on guns and what I do with PS and Ed, but a lot of people don't realize it actually was because of Civil Air Patrol that I can trace it all the way back. If it wasn't for Civil Air Patrol, I don't know if PS and Ed would be a thing. I mean, honestly, maybe it would have, but it's kind of neat how it's all connected.
It is. Real quickly, Domo is saying, is there a civil military patrol, so to speak, for U.S. Army? Well, each branch has their own auxiliary. So in the Navy, it's like the
Sea Cadets or
something Sea Cadets, but I think it's just JROTC. So there's ROTC when you're in college, and there's JROTC when you're a little kid. Right. But the Air Force one is the best. Civil Air Patrol is the best. You do way more cool stuff. All the other ones doing all the boring stuff from the Army basic training a bunch of times when you're a kid. That's boring. But yeah, Civil Air Patrol, you get to fly. So I'm going to take a second and just talk about that. Did you guys do orientation flights then? Do you have a base or nearby?
Yeah. We did orientation flights. Excuse me. I flew the counter drug mission, so I actually got certified to do that. And I got a little, I logged a little bit of pilot time myself. I was going to work towards my pilot's license, but I never was able to finish that. But I did some counter drug missions. I got approved for that. We had the cadets go up and do orientation flights in the G1000, the Cessnas, as well as the gliders too. Our son got to fly a glider, he thought it was a blast. So yeah, we did that. We did a rocket.
Did you get a license?
He didn't. No.
Okay, so he went to like a camp or something where they flew him.
Yeah, it was basically an orientation flight where a bunch of cadets, we just all went to one location where they had a wing-owned glider, and one of the pilots took each of the cadets up one at a time and let them fly it.
Yeah, super cool.
Yeah,
most of the people I knew, I wasn't as much into flying because I knew I was going Army, so I was more into like setting up tents and generators and a little bit of radios, but I was more into less into flying, I guess, more into the other stuff, Civil Air Patrol. But most of my friends could fly before we could drive because you can get your license, when you're like 14 or something.
Yeah, that's cool.
Oh, I should say for balloons and gliders. And then you get your pilot's license when you're 16 or whatever. But Yeah, most of them. I knew people that had twin engine ratings before we got out of high school because they were that into flying.
Oh wow, that's awesome. That's a great. I mean, that's such a neat thing. Like I didn't think I would like it, being that I mean, I don't hate heights, but to think you're up 1,000 feet or more in the air, but I never bothered me. I never got motion sickness, and it never bothered me one bit. I loved it.
Yeah, I
It's
always
free.
flew with whoever I could. I would just go with people that were flying for their hours. And like I say, I never really pursued the pilot side of it. But did you do orientation flights with military flights?
Yes. Yeah, most of those were senior member stuff, but yeah, the cadets. I don't think that I recall. I don't think the cadets did any of that with military. It was all just orientation flights for the cadets, and then the senior members would do stuff to keep up with their ratings and keep up with their experience with the military.
And I guess we should mention, so people we're not assuming anything. It's not just an affiliation for the kids to be indoctrinated into the military or whatever, familiarized with the military. Although that's a big portion of it. You learn how to march. You learn your uniforms. You learn all your ranks. Like you learn all your procedures. You go in as essentially a platoon leader, and most of us were platoon leaders because we already knew everything. So
Yep.
we're good to go. So you get stripes and you're good to go. So it's a nice transition into the military. Beyond basic training, though, you're done. You only get prepared for basic training. They're not really helping you for life or anything. But it is neat for the youth. But the adults are doing real operations, like Civil Air Patrol, like stopped a submarine during World War II. Like they do rescue operations on the regular. So my other question was, since we're talking Civil Air Patrol, sorry to hog it into this direction. Do you guys actually do search and rescues? Do you live in a remote enough area? Like where I lived, we'd know where a plane crashed because it would be in somebody's house, right? Like we didn't have to go look for anything. So we did simulated search and rescues. But like out here in Arizona, it must be epic. And I'm wondering what it's like out there.
We did. We actually we did bivouacs, so we'd go out and have everybody working on all their land navigation and being able to communicate with pilots. So we organized it where we'd have a plane fly over and then tip their wings to wave at us that they saw us, and we'd do different interactions on an annual basis like that. I did a couple times, at least a couple times. We did a winter bivouac where we had all the cadets come out that wanted to do it in the winter, and we taught survival in cold weather down at Highland Forest here in upstate New York. So there was search and rescue teams, SAR teams, but we didn't. Maybe a handful that I recall that we actually did get dispatched on, but a lot of it was preparing for it, but didn't get called out as much as I think we wanted or the cadets wanted to be, which is a good thing.
It was more of you're just like down on the list as opposed there wasn't nothing major enough where they needed to bring all hands on deck type of thing.
Correct. Though
when I was in, you could also there was when I was in, there was a lot of squadrons, and the squadrons more like 20 people at the biggest, like 10 people, 12 people. And that was because some of them were into radios or some were into flying. Some of them were just trying to get as much rank as possible to get into the Air Force or something like that. Like they had their focuses. But anyway, so I couldn't see where some squadrons would be like, oh no, we're never going to do search and rescue because we're not getting our hands dirty. We're not doing that unless we have to.
Yeah, it was. I do recall one that I was flying with the wing commander the group commander at the time, and we picked up we got a call, and we picked up a beacon out in North Buffalo Airport, and it was just the plane got bumped, but we got the call and we hopped in the plane and we flew all the way out to Buffalo from Syracuse. So it's like a 3-hour drive, but the flight's less obviously. We actually triangulated on it. We called the ground crew, and a bunch of cadets and senior members on the ground went out and found the transponder of the plane, and it got bumped. That was all it was. So it was probably the most exciting one.
Yeah, that's pretty much what we did too. Or they do it intentionally, someplace, but in a field or something. But yeah, that's pretty much all we had an opportunity to. Okay, so sorry to keep so much focus on the Civil Air Patrol, but like you said, that's neat that it was the impetus, I guess, to some extent of the training side of it. So I was going to ask, or I have a question here to ask at some point when we get to the how big a deal are the socials? So maybe a way to get back onto the track wherever I derailed us here is, when did the socials, when did content creation become a part of it? Or am I skipping something important here?
No, I think that's that's valid at the at this point. So about 7, maybe 6 years ago, I had an employee. It was a student of mine who came, and I certified him as an instructor. And we just got talking. We hit it off. He was in the Army. I was in the Army, and we got talking about doing maybe some kind of audio podcast. So we recorded a few of them, and we realized that there's a lot of work. Neither of us really knew kind of how to get it out there, and we didn't really see that it was going to benefit us other than just taking up more of our time and not having an outlet. So we put that, Pat Kimball is his name, we put that on the back burner, and we ended up coming up with the Meet the Pressers, the PS and Ed show. So the PS and Ed show was the initial YouTube show that we were doing. We interviewed probably, I think, 8 or 15-ish individuals. We cleared out a room down here in the basement of my house, down by my office, and ended up doing a bunch of interviews. Pat took a job closer to his house out near Buffalo, and we ended up just putting it on the back burner. I went to the UTM instructor class, the first civilian instructor certification that UTM put on that Clint Macro was hosting in PA. And that was April, so it'd be 6 years ago, or is it 5 years ago, this April coming up. And Clint's like, hey, what's up with your show? And I was like, well, I put it on the back burner. Pat took a job close to his house, so I'm just gonna. He goes, well, you can't let that go. You got sponsors, you got your Patreon, and I was like, do you want to be my co-host? And he's like, absolutely. So that was February, and then by April, we had a name, a website, and got all the social media. And our whole goal with it was just to meet and bump elbows and learn from other people and interact. And we're social people. We like people. We talk to people. We talk a lot. And figured it'd be kind of cool, and it could also feed our training company because people are going to we're going to talk about our training company. So kind of a marketing outlet for our training companies, but then we'd also meet really cool people and also help educate people through our the marketing arm of Meet the Pressers. And from there, we're just got. We like to say, Clint and I say, we just got renewed for another 6 episode or 6th season. I mean, and people are like, oh, really? Well, who renewed you? I'm like, we did.
Well, in other words, you're still enthusiastic about it. Is it still? Well, I'm sure it's a growing project. Is it still something that? Well, I guess maybe that's too big question. What's the goals? Are there goals for the project long term?
Yeah, I mean, originally when we first started it, it was immediately on IMDb. So we're like, if not one of the only YouTube shows that's listed on IMDb, and that's to Clint's credit for his history in the movie and film industry back in the 90s, doing audio and such. And then we did the podcast because we had people asking, hey, I can't watch it, but I could listen to it. Can you put it up? So I started putting that together. So we're on like 15 or 18 different audio podcast platforms. We use SoundCloud to push that out. And it just kind of kept growing. And then we just got picked up a year ago on Roku, Apple TV, and Fire TV through OpsLens, which is pretty cool. And we just keep plugging away with the interviewing people, trying to get bigger and more noticeable people. We just interviewed Donald Trump Jr. At SHOT Show. So that's probably one of the most known names worldwide that we've interviewed on the show, which was pretty exciting. But we've had a lot of great guests, a lot of known people. John Tig Tigan, one of the Benghazi heroes, many, many, many others. I think we're up to over 300 and some odd guests in the past 5 years. And, when we first started, we were doing like hour interviews, and we realized that's way too long typically for somebody who's going to watch it. So we kind of reformatted that, came back to about a half an hour interview with the commercials and the sponsors and such. But we just keep going, having the interviews, interviewing people, getting to know people, getting their message out, getting our message out. We always throw our little bit of splash of our knowledge and experience in there to add to the witty banter and the content. But I think as far as the goal is just to keep bringing good interviews, and our students and our guests will tell us, hey, you should have this person on, and it just keeps going. We really don't have to search for people to have on. We have a lot of people reaching out to us, hey, can I be on? I'm like, great, what are we going to talk about? And if it's a good thing that we haven't talked about before, or if there's somebody who's got a new book, we'll have somebody come out. We're doing a live with Charlie. That's something new that we started too. About a little over a year and a half ago, where Charlie Cook and I do a joint live show. And that's something new that came about. So it's kind of just, who knows what's next? You know, the merch, we got from the beginning, we started with our own merchandise. I came up with a bunch of ideas for some shirts. Or I love my fully semi-automatic assault rifle. Don't shoot your eye out. That t-shirt's got a Daisy Red Ryder BB gun on it. I've got the shirt of Sesame Street, but it says Gun Street, and then it says one of these things is not like the other, and it's got paper clip, a strip clip, a magazine, and then a hair clip. So just little cool little shirts like that ideas that I've come up with. So we're always just adding new things, trying to push the brand under Meet the Pressers, which just once again directs back to both of our training companies, which is what we do full time, is teach people.
Well, there's a couple of things I got. I'm going to go in directions there. So, but since you kind of stopped on, or I stopped you on training companies, like I mentioned, looking at the About Us page on your website, you see a lot of different things there, but we had more to talk about with that Civil Air Patrol. As an instructor, and I'm assuming being as active as you are, do you bring any instructors in? Stories.
You mean to work for the company, to teach for my company?
I don't know. I know that you've been done a lot of the classes to be an instructor, and you talked about the class to become a NRA instructor. Do you ever bring the instructors to you? Yeah, I guess is what I'm saying. And then, or have you brought instructors to shoot at your places, at your ranges, or
I got you. So hosted. So I hosted.
Sorry, I should have said hosted courses.
That's fine.
Yeah.
No, that's fine. That's fine. There's different terms for it, but I've hosted Larry Vickers. I've had Larry Vickers here. We hosted Clint and I co-hosted Jeff Gonzalez a few years back, and that was the next one. Then him and I both hosted Masad Ayub at his place down in PA. Not this past November, but the November prior to that. And then we're hosting Tom Gibbons at Clint's place down there in Western Pennsylvania coming up in August. So yeah, those are the four that I've hosted, or him, Clint and I together have hosted. And then Clint's hosted, a ton too. A lot of times he hosts Rob Pincus down there. It's easier to do it down there in PA just because, nobody wants to come to New York. Like Tom Gibbons won't come to New York.
Politically?
Yeah, we're behind there. We are in curtain.
Oh, New York Outcast is also in New York. Where you're located?
Yeah, I'm upstate, so it's better than the city. And still, a lot of people know.
So I don't know where.
Yeah, come up here because Syracuse. I'm by Syracuse, so it's like dead center of the state, upstate.
The only time I've been to New York recently, I might have been there as a kid, but I wouldn't count that, because the only time I've been there intentionally recently is to see Bannerman Castle. So let's bring that up, since Rob's hopefully going to tell us where he's at. Have you been to Bannerman Castle?
I don't think so. Where is that, out by Buffalo?
I have no idea. It is on the Hudson River, near.
It's probably
it's right next to West Point, or it's across the river from West Point, essentially.
Yeah, Poughkeepsie area, so that's down like Orange County. West Point's down by Orange County, New York. That's where I did my Top Shots at Orange County Chopper event that I did, where I brought Top Shots from the History Channel into Orange County Choppers, and we did a class there. Binghamton area. Oh, really? It's in Binghamton. Okay.
You guys know where you're at each now. Okay. So Orange County, I thought that was in California. That's in New York?
Yep, there's an Orange County, New York as well.
Oh, okay. Is that where that... Wait, is that the show, those Orange County Choppers?
Yeah, yep. Yeah, I was down there. Once again, I was down there teaching a Excel class, and I drove by the building, and I'm like, Orange County Choppers, that can't be the TV show. I was oblivious, didn't even know. And it was right there at the airport next to where they're located. So I went in just to look at it and looked around, and I said, it'd be pretty cool to bring the cadets down here, Civil Air Patrol, bring the cadets down here and introduce them to the cast and everything, and then kind of do a, West Point visit and whatnot. And I ended up setting it up. I got in touch with their marketing person, and the Civil Air Patrol thing never turned transpired. That never happened. But I ended up doing basically a pistol class at their location, and it was open. It was a national event to raise money for both the Purple Heart Hall of Purple Heart. It's up on the website. The Purple Heart Hall. I have to look it up now because I'm losing my mind here. Forget what they call it, but it's basically a museum for the Purple Heart.
And that's in New York also?
Yeah, it's right there. It's, I think, the next county over, but it's within like a half an hour of where Orange County Choppers, the TV show, used to be, and right there in Orange County.
I mean, I used to watch that show, I think, not like all the time, but I have seen the show, and I just always assumed it was in California for some reason. I guess I just thought it was Orange County, California. I never thought twice.
You know, it's funny because I I actually had people that were asking, "Oh, you're going to be in California?" I'm like, "No, it's Orange County, New York." They're like, "Oh, wrong, Orange County." And I guess some people thought that the show was in Orange County, California, but it was actually Orange County, New York.
Very cool.
Yeah,
now,
so
it said on the About Us page that you had tried out for a couple of different TV shows, the type where you're a contestant, essentially.
Yep.
Any stories from that? Actually, I'm still going to go back and ask stories from the classes that you've hosted, because that's something that... but go ahead, since I just asked this one first, we'll go back to that one. Any cool, fun stories from...
I would say that the two that I tried to get on, the Apprentice was one of them. I can't even remember. I have to look on the website what the other one was off the top of my head, but the Apprentice was one. And nothing made. I mean, I did a video, I sent it in, and never heard anything. So, but it was kind of cool that I took it and took the bull by the horns, I guess you could say. If you look at my IMDb credits, I was an extra in a couple movies back in the '90s, so that's nothing major. More recently, we were reached out to by a production company probably about 7 years ago, asking about doing a survival prepper kind of firearms TV show, and that never transpired. I guess the studio actually ended up dropping the plans to do it and never moved forward with it. But that was kind of a neat that they reached out to us to put something together. So we did a bunch of videos and sent it off to them, and then they ended up just not doing the show.
That happens. But like you say, it's neat to be. You can't get you can't catch a fish if you don't put a hook out there. It's neat to be involved in the lineup for those, or the setup for those.
Most definitely. So it was the Hope for Heroes Foundation and the National Purple Heart Hall of Honor, and we raised $3,500 from that event. We had sponsors like Henry and many others that donated stuff that we raffled off, and we did 2 courses. We did a New York course and then a Utah and Florida course, and that was what it was. People could sign up for the class, and the proceeds went to those 2 nonprofit organizations.
So I'm going to go back to that first question I asked, and then kind of went off on a tangent there. But when you were the classes that you've hosted, bringing in instructors and setting up the class, essentially, I don't know, at least in my circles, that doesn't get brought up very often, and I don't see very much coverage of the behind the scenes. And usually I think it's just overlooked. People don't think about how the sausage is made. They're more worried about the sausage and the price of the sausage, or the flavor of the sausage, or whatever. So since we're kind of chatting about the hows and a little bit of the whys, are there any stories from hosting, from bringing instructors in?
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of work. I mean, anybody that teaches classes themselves, it's an instructor, it's a lot of work to market and push your classes, to try to get your local students into your classes, to bring a national instructor in where the price is usually more expensive because they've got travel expenses and such. That can be, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. I think I tried to bring Larry Vickers back again for a rifle course, and we didn't get enough for us. We had to cancel that. I did try to do a nonprofit with, John Tig Tigan, one of the Benghazi heroes, and we're going to donate money to charity, but we didn't get enough for that, so we had to cancel that event too. So there's been successes, and then there's been failures in that sense of trying to make something come together. But I've always been the kind of person, if I got something on my mind, I think it'll work, I run with it. If it doesn't work, I don't look at it as a failure per se. I just look at it as a stepping stone, a learning opportunity, maybe to do it a different way. And you're always kind of testing the waters to see what your student base, what the local population wants and doesn't want. And also there's the timing of it. I've put up reloading classes, I've put up bullet casting classes, and during COVID, or right when COVID started happening, and failed miserably. I didn't get anybody to sign up for it. I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, ammo's hard to find. Why wouldn't people sign up for a reloading class? But then you flip to the other side. I just did one recently, and we had a handful of people sign up for it. So it's just sometimes there's no rhyme or reason. Just like bees with beekeeping, people are like, oh, you must do all this and do that. I'm like, I used to in the beginning. Now I just let them go. Let them do their thing, harvest the honey, and if they make it, they make it. Because you could spend all your time fretting and worrying about it, and it sometimes it's just weird how it may work out or may not work out. So why bother putting so much effort into it in the sense of bees wise is what I'm thinking. But anyway, sorry, I kind of rambled there on that, but the gist of it is that it's not always like you hope it'll turn out to be, and you got to run with it.
Yeah, for sure. And it's one of those things, it's self-improvement, and it's being coached. Like, not everyone's eager to get that. So it's an uphill battle to bring people to a class to begin with.
For sure. Yeah. And people host me all around the country, and there's been those too where I've had to cancel some of them. We haven't gotten enough students from it, but sometimes I'll wheel and deal. Like I did a class for Charlie out in Massachusetts, and we didn't get as many as we'd hoped, but I ended up crashing on his couch, so I didn't have to pay for a hotel. So that that helps to be able to have friends like that where we can make it happen. Because I'd rather teach the class than get a handful of signups and have to cancel because we didn't get 6 when we needed, or we got 5 but we needed 6. I mean, I hate that. So I'd rather not do that if I can help it. This year I actually pulled back on how much I'm going to be traveling around the country. I think I try to keep it to no more than 1 per month, because I've got so much going on here at the property and the homestead that I don't want to travel as much. And it's nice that I don't have to.
So going back to the socials, you mentioned Opslens. What's that about? I've heard of it, but I haven't used it. How is that one?
Yeah, so it's basically a website / app, and there's a handful of different shows. I think maybe a half a dozen or maybe a little bit more of shows that are registered, signed up with them, and then those shows get to play on Apple TV, Roku, and Fire TV, and so they select them based on either Second Amendment news or Second Amendment centric shows, and so it's been fun to be listed there. So you install the Opslens app on your Roku, Apple TV, or Fire TV to be able to watch the show, and that's how it ends up on the television.
Sorry, I lost my mute there. I lost my mouse on my screen here. So, how do you get any kind of analytics to let you know how many people are interacting with it on that platform?
I'm sure we do. Now that you mention it, I haven't even looked, so I'd have to hop in there and see. I know originally when we set it up a little over a year ago, we ended up having all that stuff, and I looked in the beginning, but obviously it was new. So, but I haven't looked since because I've just been so busy.
Is the audience there like? Did some major program or some channel or something create it, or is it like the host of some giant network of channels or something, or is it is it a bunch of people that got frustrated with like Google or Facebook or something? Like, is it a political platform?
So Opslens is the, from my understanding, they basically pay for the slot, and the Opslens app, Opslens is the company that has that slot, that time slot, that the app where people can download and install to be able to watch whatever show that they're playing at whatever time slot. So I guess the comparable.
It's more like a network then.
Yeah, I guess right, exactly. It's more like a network. I mean, you'd be comparable to like you could rent or purchase a slot of time on a local radio show and you can play whatever you want because you've purchased that block. I guess would be maybe an easy way to represent it.
Okay. And then the viewers are people that value the type of programming that's over there, and it's all.
Yep. They can tune in through the Opslins app right on any of those platforms and watch whatever's whatever's presenting at whatever time. Each show has a different time slot. I know Eye on the Target radio, they're up there, and there's a few other ones too.
And they're free to watch them.
Or
is it like a fee?
I know they were free. I know they were free in the beginning. I think Ron was saying something about charging a fee eventually. So I don't know if the fee is in place now or not. It might be.
How would you say? Is it worth investigating? Is it worth hosting on?
Yeah, most definitely. I mean, more exposure, right? I mean, we're listed on TV, so we're technically a IMDb listed TV show is how we promote it, because it is, right? And I think we get more guests that we maybe wouldn't normally get, because I can say to them, hey, we'll give you an IMDb credit on Hollywood. There's a lot of people in the gun industry that don't have that. They've never been on a show that could put them on IMDb. So there's a lot of people that we've given IMDb credit to that would have never gotten it, or I shouldn't say they would never get it, but they got it from us. We were their first IMDb credit, which is kind of neat. So, between that and being on Roku, Apple TV, Fire TV, and a training company, that's kind of something different that we do that not many other, very, very few, if any, other YouTube shows do.
Yeah, I'm not aware of any. So that's another whole direction I wanted to go, and we're getting close to the top of the hour here. But so is it the Opslins just happens to be a thing and you're on IMDb, or because you're on Opslins that gets you on IMDb also?
No, so the IMDb was original. When we first set up the show on YouTube, Clint was already listed. He already had IMDb credit from all his Hollywood days back in the 90s doing audio and video. So he put it in through IMDb to see if we could get the show credited and listed on IMDb, and they approved it. So because of his credentials that he had prior, it was pretty easy. He just had to go in and list it and see if they would approve it, and they approved it as an IMDb listed show. And then that was like right from the get-go. That was almost instantaneously within a month or so of us starting in April of that year that it was listed.
Yeah, that's very cool. I mean, I don't know. There's probably other, what's the word? Like other YouTube channels or something that are on there because, like you say, they either whatever, we're on a show. So really, if you're on a show, so you could be on Johnny Carson's show or whatever the popular show is, right? But vaping and talking at the same time. But that's not the same as, talking about guns or anything, because they're probably just talking about whatever Yahoo project they got going on or whatever gimmick they've got going on. But I guess I'm going over here I'm going to screen share, because even though this is a podcast, we are recording this on YouTube, so I'm going to take the opportunity to use the technology here to jump to your IMDb page here, and I'll drop a link to that for people that want to check it out, because this is by no means a small accomplishment or anything, but what you've done with it is deserves as much recognition as can be done, because let's take a look at who you've got over here. Josh Prince, that's the attorney, I'm assuming.
That is correct.
Michael Bain, he already was on here probably. Pincus, I don't know if he was on here or not. Sarah Joy is the
Hold My Guns.
Hold the Gun ones. Kevin Dixie, so KD from No Other Choice.
Yep.
Yuda. You got Cheryl Todd, who has been on 5 times. I guess these are in order how many times people have been on. Correct. But Cheryl Todd, doing all kinds of work out there. Ashley, who works with museums. I don't know who Bram Frank is.
As a knife, he owns a knife company. He's martial arts for many, many years.
Right on. Mike Sedini, Diana Mueller. Can I keep going with this?
I'm actually going to see Diana this weekend. She's doing her Ambassador Academy down in Orlando.
Are you going down to that?
I'm going to stop by and say hi, but I'm actually going to be down in Florida teaching next weekend.
So Dale Comstock, why does that sound familiar?
He wrote the book American Badass.
Thank you. Then Iraqi veteran,
Yep.
Chris Chang, who might have already been on here because of Top Shot, I guess, technically, but still.
Yep.
Joe
Teta, he's from Survivor TV show.
But I'm looking at the Second Amendment people. So Amanda Suffolk, Derek from Kids Safe, Craig DeLuz running for Congress right now, or is it Senate, but running for office right now. Ken Blanchard. I wouldn't be doing this if it wasn't for Ken Blanchard.
Awesome.
We've got Robin Sandoval in here, right? We got
up.
Gabby Franco. She's probably already on here, but still. Jera from Texas. Tiffany Johnson. So Jeff Gonzalez, again, probably might be already on there. There's might be people I'm missing, but I'm looking for 2A people. Mike from the Armstrong Radio or radio show. Amy Dillon.
I'll be recording with Mike this Saturday too.
So this is awesome, dude. So I really appreciate. And then as soon as we're going to get to Tony Simon, there we go. Now, some of these people again are probably already on here, or have been on shows or something. But yeah, you've got an impressive list. Like I'm just overlooking people like Craig Douglas, right? But Rebecca Schmoy, right? That's awesome, dude. Kim Peters. Is that Kim Peters from Rhode Island or Connecticut, Delaware?
Yeah, I think it's Delaware, but in that area. Yep.
Heck yeah, dude. So the only person out there speaking at the national level with an actual marijuana and guns initiative.
Yep, you got it.
That's awesome. Beth Alcazar, Maj. Yep. Dude, so, I mean, this is beyond, effort to the community. So was this intentional to have the 2A people, or was that just accidental because there was so many people? Go ahead and take over.
I think it's
these people on IMDb who are, anybody can get whatever, somebody trying to sell something or somebody that's so big, but the people I'm talking about, that's a service to the community, dude. That's awesome.
Well, I appreciate you saying that. It's nothing that we really, I guess, sought out to do per se. It was just it just fell in our laps. We had the show. We have people that we want to have on the show just to have a conversation, kind of like we're having now. It's more of just a way to, talk and express ideas and vet things out, give them exposure while also giving us more exposure for what we do. So it just happened that way. And a lot of times too, there's other shows like Rob Beckman's and Charlie Cook. They have somebody on, and I'll reach out and be like, hey, can you put me in touch? We'd like to have them on. We haven't had them on before. And actually, Charlie Cook and I, that was part of our collaborative show that we came up with, the Writing Shotgun or Meet the Pressers and Writing Shotgun with Charlie live show that we do, was to see who we've had on each other's shows and go revisit with them and say, hey, you've been on Meet the Pressers, but why don't you come on our joint live show together? Or you've been on Charlie, Writing Shotgun with Charlie, why don't you come on our joint live show together? And we're kind of tapping into who we've had on, kind of like a best of both shows kind of thing. And just another way to revisit it and have have people come on that we like and we hang out within the industry that have something good to say, spread the gospel, Second Amendment, because we know the politicians are trying to take it away, so we need to do everything we can to support each other, and that's kind of our way of supporting each other.
Right, and part of that is awareness. Like another alternative thing is awareness, or it's a part of that is awareness, and that's what that's creating too, is getting people, because people are going to, IMDb is nothing small. It's a massive site on the internet. I mean, getting back to the tech side of this whole thing, I'm not talking like that's a neat feather in people's cap. It is, but that's a massive accomplishment for when people are going to search for those names. When somebody searches for who is Rebecca Schmoy, like that's adding a lot of weight to her name, and the others, that are doing projects that have value.
Yeah, and sometimes I've made, because we've had like Matt Page, Master Ken, and we've had people like that have already been on there. They're accomplished actors. We've had Max Martini from the Unit and 50 Shades of Grey, and I make the joke sometimes to people that are already on there and go, hey, why don't you come on our show? We'll give you an actor's credit. And then they laugh. Like right now, we're setting it up at the NRA's annual meeting. We're going to be interviewing. Clint and I are going to be interviewing Chuck Liddell, Chuck the Iceman Liddell, the MMA fighter. So we're going to have him on the show. So it's, it's so cool, like to walk up and say, hey, we're an IMDb listed show. Why don't you come on? We'll give you your first actor's credit. And then I smile and they're like, you're funny, because they're already listed on there. So that doesn't pull any weight with them, but at least it's the humor gets them, and we get them on.
All right. Well, so we're about an hour. There has been one question that we haven't asked yet. CNT Designs and Arms out there is asking, and thanks everybody for joining us tonight. We've asked a couple of questions that have come up. I've tried to recognize who the people are that asked them. Sorry if I didn't, but CNT is asking, how long did it take Charlie to recover from SHOT Show? No, he's down in Massachusetts, so I guess you just talk to each other. But
yeah, it's funny.
Or did you guys both go to the Great American Show?
He did. Clint was at the Great American Show Friday through Sunday teaching. I was there Monday. I drove a bunch of students down. So every year I bring New York students down to PA to get their pistol license, and then we go to the Great American Show for the day. So I was there on Monday the 5th. I'm scheduled to be there again next year on the 3rd, and then Clint hooked me up with teaching classes there. So I'm probably going to be teaching reloading classes that second weekend at the Great American Show next year. And then Charlie was there. I think he was there. I think he had his camera set up for Trump. I think he was at the Trump event, if I remember right. But he was there near the end of the week as well. So I didn't see Clint or Charlie, but I know they were both there later in the week after I was already there earlier in the week.
Well, like I say, we're already at an hour. I'll let you decide. It's your night that you're giving us. We appreciate your time tonight, this evening for you. You mentioned earlier that 2008 was your third SHOT Show. So 2005 was your first SHOT Show?
I think it was. I was just trying to think how long it's been. And I think this was my 11th that we just went through. So whatever that puts it at, roughly.
Oh, so you haven't gone every single year then?
Well, I've gone every year. I didn't go the year that they canceled it for COVID.
Okay. So I guess 11th year into SHOT Show, you'd been. I don't know if we talked about this or not. So then you would have started going while it was still at the Sands, like you've always experienced it at the Sands.
Yeah. So 2000. It looks like probably 2013. I think was my first year, roughly, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay. Then since that we just got done with SHOT Show, and people hate hearing about it sometimes, and this can just bother them. But I'm curious because I'm a big fan of the show myself. After so many years, just any riffs on SHOT Show, I'll leave it open-ended.
Honestly, I hate going and being away from the family. I hate the time difference because that makes it tough to say goodnight to my daughter. And but to me, it's what we do in the industry. It's kind of like you got to be there. You're going to see the new stuff, especially doing the media. I mean, we go there for Meet the Pressers just to be able to do interviews and to do commercials and meet with companies, see what's new, and bring that information back to our students and back to the general public. So it's a necessity for me to be there. And like I said, I hate being away from the family. That's why I'm limiting my travel this year down to trying to do no more than one weekend a month. But I think May I've got 2 trips. But other than that, every month past that, I think I'm only going to be gone one weekend. But the takeaway with SHOT Show, if you're in the industry, you definitely got to go there, but have a plan. I mean, every year gets better because we have a plan. And just like Mike Tyson said, you can have a plan until somebody punches you in the face. But it's having a plan. At least you've got some organization. There's been years where I went there and I had no organization. I had a list of names, and you run from one end of the building to the next, and it takes you an hour. And you can't do everything. So like this year, there's people that I missed. I didn't get to see. Next year, and we've already secured this, but next year we're going to be recording live and recording interviews from the Otis booth. So Otis is a sponsor of ours. Otis has a studio, and we're going to be recording at the Otis studio daily and multiple times during the day. At least one live bit every day, but then also interviews will be done. Our main interviews will be done there. It's more of a controlled location, and then obviously we're helping our sponsor, and they're helping us.
Now, I heard internet was pretty decent at the show.
Yeah, I don't recall having issues with that. One thing this year that we did again last year we had a Andrew Emery's one of somebody I've known for many years. He isn't a student of mine, but we did a lot with laser ammo. He'd always come by and we'd compete, and I'd beat him. Yes, Andrew, I said I'd beat you. Anyway, and he was our handler this year, just like last year, and it worked out really well. Where he set all the appointments, he organized everything, he made sure we got to places on time. He knew where all the booths were, and said just follow me, which took a lot of stress off of Clint and I. And we're going to probably do the same thing next year. And we went this year last year we went with 3 total. Clint didn't go. This year we went with 6, and Clint did go. Next year we're going to be there with 8. There'll be 8 of us on our team.
Wow. So do you have any interest in talking more about that? So
Sure.
2 parts. To reiterate, you had someone to go with to be an assistant essentially, or a coordinator. And then I brought 8 before, and I don't anymore. So I'm curious on that whole thought process and the roles of 8 people. That's
Definitely.
interesting to say the least.
Yeah, and I think you hit the nail on the head. It's you got to have roles, right? I mean, otherwise it's just people walking around aimlessly. Everybody knows we did a Zoom session prior just to get everybody's roles situated. It's based on capabilities. Like Andrew originally went last year, to do photography, and he ended up falling into the kind of the director's position, kind of moving us around, scheduling things, being the bad guy. Like, hey Matt, we got to go. You got an appointment. You can't get. We got to move this along. So he was actually the bad cop when I was talking to somebody. He could literally.
That'd be so valuable. That'd be amazing. Yeah,
it's huge. It was huge. Like last year, it was so good that it literally helped. It just kind of clicked. I'm like, he's great at that, right? And he knows a lot about products. He knows what's new. He's got his ear to the floor. I don't as much because I'm so busy teaching and so busy doing the show that sometimes I'm disconnected from society, which isn't a bad thing, I guess, in this day and age. So he's a huge help. Excuse me. One of my students, Austin Boyd, he went this year. He said that he'd always wanted to go, and I said, well, we're looking for extra help. He's also going to be, if everything turns out good, he's going to gunsmith school, and he's going to be my gunsmith for PS and Ed.
Which school?
He's probably going to do. He's probably going to do the modern gunsmith, is what I'm hoping he'll do, because of Zeke. Zeke's out, and I like Zeke. I like what Zeke does, and Zeke came over from SDI, so that's probably what he's leaning towards. But it all depends on his time.
Okay, sorry to sidetrack. I'm big interest in gunsmith schools. I'm always curious.
Yeah, the modern gunsmith school that Zeke Stout is one of the founders of is the one that I've been pushing. Zeke took one of my classes. Katie had me come down to his train and learn in the spring of last year, and I taught my Force on Force class there, and Zeke was one of my students, and we hit it off well, and got talking. So I really like Zeke and what they're doing over there at Modern Gun School. But anyway, back to the roles. We got to have roles. Austin was valuable. He helped Andrew a lot. Next year he's going to be a runner, but he's also looking for products. He's looking for things to bring back for us to be able to sell and use in our classes and in our gun store. I've got a Type 7 Class 2 FFL here in New York. And then David did photography and video, as well as Josh. Josh reached out to me, and Josh was like, hey, I couldn't, the company I worked for last year, I don't work for them anymore. I really want to go to SHOT Show. Can you help me? And Josh and I met a while ago at a show and just hit it off. And I said, sure. So we had him come in for the last few days of the show, and he was very valuable. We did a live night fire shoot with NVGs, full auto, suppressed, for one of our clients. Knocked them outdoors, and he was great with that. We did also a photo shoot for Condor clothing, as well as First Line Tactical clothing, and he was a huge help with that as well. And then we had Daniel, and Daniel was helping. He was doing photography. So next year we're probably gonna do all that, but we're gonna have one more media person, maybe 2, and we want to try to get more content out during SHOT Show. And what we found is that we're spending so much time doing interviews and doing reviews and and such like that, that by the time we're done with all that, we don't have any time. We don't have any extra staff to be able to start uploading stuff to the internet. So we don't get as much out during SHOT Show as we'd like. So that's the goal next year, is to have at least 1 or 2 more bodies on the video audio side that can actually start uploading stuff and getting content pushed out to all the social media platforms during SHOT Show. So that way we can keep that momentum going, because that's when everything's the buzz. You got hashtag SHOT Show 24, hashtag SHOT Show. We want to try to utilize that momentum.
Right on. I had a couple of other questions, but without going way back into topics and stuff, I think we can say thanks for your time. And what I'm attempting to do is have these conversations on Mondays, and then occasionally bring a bunch of people back together to have just a roundtable type of discussion, and not necessarily have to do interviews as much as just people get together who I've interviewed, similar to what you're doing with Charlie, except an open conversation, maybe, whatever the topics come up with the live viewers, or, what's on people's minds. So hopefully you'll jump back in one of those and we can chat more about all kinds of things here. We didn't even get into your other roles, your other hats that you've got. You kind of alluded to the beekeeping and some of the other entrepreneurial stuff, but you've had all kinds of hats. So if I can kind of invite you on air to one of those in the future, I'll do
Absolutely.
that. And then even though I've got a link to your website here, I'm sure you're used to giving a wrap up with how to contact you, what you've got coming up. Feel free to take as much time as you'd like for this.
Yeah, for sure. I appreciate it. I really thank you for having me on. It's always fun to talk to like-minded individuals in this industry. It kind of reinvigorates me, and it also keeps me, it helps me not lose lose faith in society. The best way to find out about me and learn more would be MalloryUnlimited.com. So just MALLORY, and then unlimited spelled out, and that links to all the stuff that I'm doing. MeetThePressers.com, Meet the Pressers on all the social media platforms. We're able to secure that, so that's pretty cool. And then PSNED, PublicSafetyEducation.com, or PSNED.com is my training company. Those are the 3 main things. But the MalloryUnlimited.com links to all the stuff all the businesses that I have and that I'm doing. So it's kind of like a portal for everything. That's the LLC that is over top of all those DBAs.
Right on. Well, thanks again for your time. And yeah, you're much appreciated. What you're doing is of value. And I'm glad you're
likewise, my friend.
Been motivated to do it. So, we did get one question coming in here at the end, and I think it's from one of your channels. David is asking, what was your favorite new gun at SHOT Show this year?
Well, I can tell you one of the cool things that I liked that we also saw at the Great American Outdoor Show was the Fostech's new, I think it was a 20 round 50 BMG drum magazine.
Yeah, very cool.
That was neat. But there was one that caught a lot of our eyes at Range Day on Monday at SHOT Show. I can't remember the company. David actually might be able to pop on there and say what it was, and you can pop it up on the screen if you remember. But it's the one that has the you can change the grips out on the Glock, the back strap, but this gun actually you can change out the bottom of the grip where the mag well is, so you can make it longer to fit your hand, your full hand, so you can get all your fingers on the grip. We thought that was pretty interesting. It was probably one of the things that stood out that made us, kind of like. The other one I would say is is that last hurrah. I would say the lever action from Henry that takes PMags. So it's a lever action Henry rifle that takes PMags. It's like so cool, right? You can literally shoot 9 or 223 out of the thing. You just slap the mag in it.
And then, wait, you have to slap a barrel in it to change the 9 to 223?
Well, it's fit specifically, so it's all built for that, but it takes PMags, whether it's 9 or 223, depending on the rifle. So you purchase two different rifles. But the neat thing is that it's a lever, so people that like lever action and also want to have the ability to have a more of a magazine / ammo, 9mm or 223 being 2 most common that you're going to see in handgun / rifle. Those are the two most common.
Yeah, super durable mags as well. So then also compliant. Like you don't have to worry about whatever weird issues your state might have politically.
Yeah, for sure. Because you're right, because it's semi-automatic. Like New York State, the whole SAFE Act and the CCIA is a semi-automatic rifle with a detachable magazine. Well, if it's not a semi-automatic and it's the lever action, that doesn't fall underneath that law. So and you can still use that caliber. And it's just how fast can you move that lever. David, that comment David put up there. I don't know if you want to throw that up there. The last one, yeah. So David's my Facebook. He does Facebook. He goes to the show with us, SHOT Show, and does a lot of the recordings. He was at Great American Show. We're going to be covering GunCon. So John's got us coming out to cover GunCon in June at Brownells in Iowa, and David's going to be riding out with me in the car to do a lot of that. So David's a huge help to me, and he's been there. He's one of my students. That's how we first met, and we just kind of hit it off, and he's always there. But what he's talking about here is I had him walk up and down the whole outdoor range for range day, the industry day, media day at the range. So he walked from one end to the other end with his GoPro to get the whole thing on time lapse on the GoPro. So we can't wait till we get that out. It's going to be kind of interesting video.
Yeah, very cool. I thought about getting on one or asking one of the dudes on those golf carts to scoot me along to do that, but they're usually pretty ornery.
We thought about that at the end. I was like,
I don't want to do it, but at the end of the day, they might do it for sure. You're not going to see the crowd or whatever, but at the end of the day, they might be tired enough to actually do it. But
right.
You could do it in the van or whatever that thing was, that bus. But wait, did it ditch out into the parking lot? It might have ditched out into the parking lot to go from the south side to the north side. But yeah, that is cool. SHOT Show did one as they were setting up, and it freaked me out because the way they did, essentially what you're talking about, somebody walked it and they sped it up for Instagram. So it was short, but it freaked me out because I thought it was going to be about a third of the size, assuming it was the all-inclusive. I was like, whoa, there's not very much of the range this year. But it actually turned out to be, I was pretty impressed with the range this year. The last couple of years, it's bugged me how it kind of crowds up to the street or the highway or whatever up there. And people don't even walk up there, I think, because it's so creepy over there. But the way that they expanded the range to the south and kind of curled it up, I think that was pretty cool.
Yeah, it seems like it keeps getting longer.
Yeah, seriously. Well, they figured out to shoot into a big hill instead of down a big line, and I don't know. I think it worked. Got some longer ranges down on the south side.
For sure.
Anyway, we're not talking about SHOT Show. So it was sort of at the end of the show there. Again, thanks for joining us, and thanks everybody for the kind words and for joining us live. If you're listening to this as a podcast, leave us some feedback out there. The likes and the shares and that kind of stuff are much appreciated. And we'll be back next time. Well, I guess I'll throw a commercial for my store up here just to give an end to the show.
GearWebsites.com is your source for firearms-based playing cards and books. We also have mugs, shirts, and posters with designs that we've made live. Of course, we have patches. Every Friday is Free Patch Friday. We appreciate your support. Thank you for shopping at GearWebsites.com.